Well, here we are. I sincerely wish that I wasn't here to speak to you under such serious circumstances. It seems that any time I do a live stream these days, well, it is because something serious, something harmful either to our interests specifically as pagans and witches, or harmful to people's interests in society generally. It does seem that just keeps on happening. Well, that is what it is. Please, everyone, make yourself comfortable. I hope you have your caffeinated beverage of choice at hand. This is a day for calm spirits and clear heads, wouldn't you say? So, before I get into it, I want to say hello. Good morning to Violence is Life. Thank you for being here with me. That is very, very much appreciated. It's good to have friends around us at difficult times, and this is a very difficult time for our country. The country has experienced and seen attempted and successful assassinations in the past, and it has always been incredibly significant pivot points when that does take place. And it's obvious why. It's because those are not the rules that we all agree to play upon. We think that, generally speaking, if we have issues with one another, and Americans have always had issues with one another, that we discuss it in debates and public forums, coffee houses, that we vote to change on it, that we browbeat our legislators to do things. But we don't like it when people are doing assassinations, do we? Because that just isn't who we are. And for all of those who think that America has no culture, well, we have some pretty particular standards with how we think a business should be conducted. And before I go on, I want to say hello, if I can get my machines to cooperate. Hello to Arizona Raven. Very glad to have you here. And yes, we most certainly are talking about yesterday. In fact, we will probably be talking about yesterday for quite some time. And I don't just mean my live stream or the other people who are seeing fit to comment upon this. We will be talking about this for a very, very long time. This is a direct consequence of vilifying your political opponents, transforming them into these monsters, and creating such an image in people's minds that they consider someone who, on the whole, is politically moderate. If you actually look at his actual positions, not what the biased media says are his positions, if you actually look at the facts, very moderate, wants pretty simple things, simply wants people to be secure, be able to do their business, raise their families, and go on with life. It's really not much. When I was growing up, that was perfectly normal, expected, required of politicians. That was kind of the base level everyone agreed upon. But a great deal has changed since I was young. And a lot of it has a great deal to do with all of the dehumanization, with all the radicalization, particularly on the left. Violence of Life is telling me that Mark Dice, PJW, and others have played the supercut of all the Dems spewing hate to Trump. Oh, absolutely. You know, for all of the whining and complaining we get from the silence is violence crowd, and people who get very upset about anyone saying anything harsh about their particular policies, they sure don't have a problem spewing out all sorts of things. Let's see, and Violence in Life goes on to say, TDS is now over. How dare the media continue the program after this? Oh, sweetheart, they will dare. And more than that, and this is what I wanted to make sure that I put out in front of people, because I think we need to be mentally steeling ourselves. Yesterday's assassination attempt is not going to be the end of it. His opposition tried taking him out through the usual political means. They went to the extraordinary measures of trying to have multiple impeachments. The court cases against him, if you actually look at the facts involved in the case, are stupendously ridiculous and incoherent and legally insane. trying to put him in jail. That's not working out too well for them. So the only play that they have left is to end his life. Speaking of ending lives, I'm sure all of you heard about the one person from yesterday's event did die. They caught a bullet, and that was it for them. I believe 2 others are critically wounded. I haven't seen any immediate updates on them, so if anyone in the comments knows what's happening with them, definitely let me know. Let me know, because I would like to know, are they recovering? Are they doing well? What's going on? I believe there are several charity streams that are trying to collect money to help the families. Definitely look into who you might be donating to, making sure it's legit, because at a time like this, people really do need help, and it's important for us to rally around our neighbors. Yeah, it's a sad time. And I'm sure you've seen the footage that I have as well. Where the shooter was stationed was within a range that I believe it is protocol for the Secret Service and local police to actually have cordoned off and covered and make sure that no one is up there, particularly no one with implements of destruction. Yeah. And yet it was empty, and it was unguarded. And he climbed up there in broad daylight. People saw something. They said something. They were screaming at the police and the Secret Service, "He's over there. He has a gun. This isn't good." They did nothing. They did nothing. Now, isn't that conspicuous? It almost doesn't matter to me if it was maliciousness or if it was just sheer incompetence on the part of the Secret Service. Clearly, they're unfit for the job, and it's just a matter of degrees of determining what kind of criminality they should be charged with. I have also heard that they had been begging and pleading for quite some time from headquarters to have reinforcements, more resources, and considering the political climate and everything going on, there was no reason to deny that request, and yet it was. So Mayorkas and everyone else associated with the Secret Service, if you're in leadership positions, you're responsible, criminally responsible for that. There's no excuses, none whatsoever. And I'm really done with listening to excuses. And I just want to say how much I appreciate the people who came out yesterday and who have come out this morning on social media, who, regardless of their political views, no matter what their own views were, who said that this cannot be happening. We are not going to allow this in this country. And the people who've actually said, well, I'm going to vote for him now. If the establishment, if the powers that be are going to go to such lengths to take him out, then they don't think that he's the monster that they've claimed him to be. And if there's something we need to be concerned with, it's the people who are plotting for assassinations. That's who we should be worried about as being dangerous to our society. Threats to democracy. There was nothing democratic about the attempt on Trump's life. Nothing democratic at all. I've just really, really had it. But what's important now is not necessarily how we feel about it, how we deplore it, how sad it is, or even what it means for us in historical terms for the country itself. Those things matter, but they are not the chief consideration at the moment. The only thing that actually needs to be discussed is what's to be done. Now, obviously, there does need to be massive support in the election, and I think that has absolutely been accomplished now. Trump needs to have all possible support to ensure his life, and frankly, that of his family, because I'm sure that his family is targeted as well. And was anyone else really proud about how he responded to that? How he got up, raised his fist in the air, encouraged people to fight. He was defiant. He was composed. He had command of himself, the situation. That was quite a moment. Can you think of any other politician who would have had the presence of mind to do that? I really can't. We know most of them are spineless cowards. Not Trump. Not Trump. That is what you want to see in someone who's actually a leader. Now, those of you who know me and who have heard my various political thoughts over the years, you know that I don't really approve of the idea of leaders in a republic, because the politicians should be servants and the people should be leading themselves. That being said, until people recover their nerves and they actually live up to that, about what it means to be part of a republic, to be a citizen in that republic, they need leaders, and people needed that. And did you also hear the crowd after that starting to chant USA, USA, USA? That was defiance as well. That was a moment of the warrior. And Violence is Life is referencing that meme of, Trump versus bullets and Biden versus stairs. It's a good one. It shows the difference of those men. One is a reanimated corpse, and the other is a living, breathing man who is a billionaire, could be doing literally anything else that doesn't attract him undue attention, doesn't put him in any danger, doesn't cause him the slightest inconvenience. And yet, because he actually cares about the country, he's putting himself and his family and everything else at considerable risk. There's just no comparison between the two. Let's see. Then Arizona Raven asked, has anyone actually seen him make a statement since? I don't know if you're referring to Trump or to Biden. Trump has put out several posts on Truth Social that have gotten relayed to Twitter. They've been very complimentary of the people who rallied around him, expressed great sympathy for the person who died and for the families of the injured and everything else. And he's on point. It's about back to business. I don't know if he actually attended the UFC event last night that he was supposed to go to, but I did see him coming off the plane. In New Jersey. I saw the video of that. He was fine. He was defiant. He was good. People do not seem to think much of Biden's statement. First of all, his statement, it was just this written statement. And then, when they saw on social media that was clearly inadequate, they bumbled the old man in front of the camera. He muttered a few words. And with Biden, it isn't even worth hating him anymore. Because, again, he's a reanimated corpse. There's nothing there. Nothing there. He's just this prop that his puppet masters use to get him to say things and do things on their behalf. Nothing more. I mean, the people behind him, they're the real problem. I mean, under his own power, Biden couldn't even put on his shoes, I bet. And welcome to the Great American Pagan Project. He writes, I really hope this wakes up Americans on this false and dangerous narrative coming from the left. For many people, it has. I am very happy to say. Now, other people I did see on Twitter yesterday, they were doing things like, how could they miss and so close and blah, 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 blah. I want everyone to take note of people saying this, whether they are prominent people or ordinary people like you and me. Take note of these people. I know no one likes to think about this. I know no one wants to think in these terms. I get it. I understand that, but that is not the reality of our situation. People have chosen their side. And if they are still choosing the side of the people who either encourage or welcome or think are wonderful, wonderful ideas, people who support the assassination of their political opponents, those people are anti-American. They are a danger to absolutely everyone. They're even in danger from the power brokers on their own side. I mean, do you really think that any of the left cares about those people or wouldn't dispose of them the moment they became inconvenient? Of course they would. That's how the left works. It's horrible. And on that note, things are going to get more tribal. And when it comes to choosing a side and letting people know where you stand, I'm sorry, but this is the time to show your colors. Particularly for those of us who are pagan and witches, who are patriotic and love this nation, we need to let the majority Christians know we are on the side of the Constitution. We are on the side of the rule of law. I know the Christians, they have this great mythos and narrative about how the American Republic is an expression of, and it was inspired by Christian theology, and isn't that special? And yes, they are deluded. They are absolutely deluded on that point. However, for the moment, our interests in there do align. Now, for us, the thing we can say to them is that the idea of an American Democratic Republic is really a fulfillment of many of the things that our ancestors tried to do. The experimentation with the democratic process in Greece, all of the teething troubles they had with that. It was from them that we later learned, and that created the formation of this republic. It was from the pagan Romans who showed what a republic could be, at least for a period of time, that inspired the founders. It was the cultural and the norms and ethos and sense of life of the Celts and the German tribes and the Slavic peoples and the Greco-Romans and even to a certain extent the Egyptians that all correlated and blended together. And those are things that got carried through the centuries, even if Christians sometimes borrowed and repurposed things, because that's not what matters right now. The point is that all of us, and we need to make the claim very clear that we as pagans and witches, this is our civilization too. We are the inheritors of these great traditions, and when it is attacked, it is an attack on us. And quite frankly, it is very much an attack on the pagan revival. One of the nastiest, most corrupt, corrosive things that the left has done is it has taken people who felt outsided and that they were disaffected and that they didn't really feel like they were part of the broader society. And they said, oh, come here. We understand you. We accept you. Vote for us. We'll totally represent your interests. And they don't, of course. But they made an emotional appeal. And I'm sorry to say that many of our brothers and sisters, particularly in the 60s and 70s, fell for it hook, line, and sinker, and now we are having to fix that. And that's over and above the present-day indoctrination that the left has been doing on people. It's not easy. It's the reason why on this channel I've spoken less about politics recently and more about cultural values, particularly pagan cultural values. It's why every single day in the daily forecast I share a quotation from the Celtic triads. It's why on Twitter every single day you'll see another Celtic triad. You'll see a quote from the Havamal. I've been sharing quotes from Marcus Aurelius. I have been doing as much as I possibly can to shore people up, to say we have a sense of what kind of people we should be. We have points of inspiration to take for our moral standards, our cultural standards, even standards of governance of what we expect between the state and the people. We have these things. We need only learn about them and then represent them, practice them, make sure that we are a force to be reckoned with. Because so many of the verses that I've been sharing lately, even for people who don't share our gods and don't share our beliefs, it has wisdom, it has relevance, it has ideas that actively help. And that's what we need to show. We need to show that we are part of the people who are trying to restore and preserve what this nation can be, certainly its potential. We do not have unlimited time. We do not have unlimited resources. We don't have unlimited chances. And unlike the Abrahamics, we know good and well that it is up to us as adults to create the society we are meant to have. We can't just leave it in the hands of the gods. They will support us, but they will not do the work for us, and nor should they. They are not, we can't just give it up and say, well, I guess justice will be done in the afterlife. Well, yeah, I'm sure that there is justice in the afterlife, and I hope the shooter is meeting his right now. But we do not look off to the afterlife to escape the issues of the present. We do not look to the hereafter to excuse us from the obligations we have in the present while we are in corporeal form, alive, and able to take action on earth. If anything, this goes to show how much they need us. How many times have they been black-pilled over the past couple of decades? Whereas amongst pagan circles, it's been more so, yes, really rough stuff could happen. Not really thrilled about how our options are shrinking and what might need to be done in order to take our society back. But what I don't generally see from pagan circles, at least not by anyone who dares remain in my orbit, is we're doomed and there's nothing that can be done. We don't think that way. There's always something that can be done. I mean, my gods, think of what people went through to preserve what information we have about the old ways. Think what they went through, the risk they took. We survived because people dared. We survived because people didn't take setbacks and even defeats as the final defeat. We survived because people had faith of something that was more real than some fairy tale out of the Middle East that seems to be good for little more than just controlling people. Whether our Christian brethren knows it or not, they need us. They need the wisdom we have inherited, and so now is the time for us to shout loud and long and loudly. I am so done with all of the excuses people have made. I am so done with the narrative about how anyone can be here, anyone can get along. Well, clearly that's not true. You cannot get along with people whose stated goal is to rid the world of you, of your way of life, your philosophy, your way of doing things. That's what the opposition is doing right now. It isn't about race for them. They'll use race and wield it as a political weapon for their political gain, but they don't really believe in any of that. They do not care about religion because their only religion is what keeps them in power. They just don't care. They just want to use what they can use. Because the issue is in having power, wealth, control, because they are empty, soulless, talentless people who have absolutely nothing to exist for if they are not striving to control other people. Is there anything more pathetic than the pursuit of power? My brother and sister in the craft, we understand the nature of power, don't we? We understand what it's good for and what it isn't. We know what it can do and what it can't. Because unlike other people who need to have titles and they need other people to surrender to them, they need to have power conferred to them through some mechanism, that isn't our reality. We are born with our power. Nothing can take it away. It's just a question of do we learn to use it well and to what point and purpose, but it's never separate from us. So we understand its limitations better than these empty people ever could. They are weak, and it's time to start exploiting those weaknesses. But to do so calmly, rationally, strategically. My friends, why do you suppose I've been encouraging people through all of my social media to read up the Stoic philosophers, particularly Marcus Aurelius? Why do you suppose I have encouraged people to familiarize themselves with the tactics of Sun Tzu and the art of war? Because not every war is fought on a battlefield with armies with recognizable weapons and actual battle lines. That is certainly not how warfare is conducted in the here and now. Well, we have war theaters for sure where people are getting shot, but the real conflicts begin so much further beyond before that happens. The conflict happens long before that happens, long before anyone is ever shot or hurt or injured in any physical way. It begins with the mind. So let us fight with the mind. We can't rely on people who are so easy to persuade to give up to save our civilization. We cannot rely upon them. We have to show leadership. We have to show courage and bravery. And it is past time for us to leave behind our own petty differences within our own religious circles. There's a lot of things that are absolutely up for debate. But in the face of clear and present threats to your civilization, not the most important thing. The gods have always created societies in which people were very practical. They dealt with reality. And it's past time for us to follow that good example. So be brave. Encourage your children, your grandchildren to be brave, and encourage everyone to keep their heads and to think about what's actually going to be effective as countermeasures for this. Also, please, everyone, keep in your thoughts, light some candles for Baron Trump. He was present at the rally. He saw his father get shot with his own eyes. He just graduated high school. He's barely 18. Can you imagine what that does to the mind of a young man to see that? To see that there are people within the civilization his father is desperately trying to save, willing to take him out, just like that, in front of everyone. Because make no mistake, if Donald Trump had not turned his head, if he wasn't in the habit of keeping his head on a swivel, looking at the crowd, communicating, connecting with people, if he had not turned his head right in that second, the bullet wouldn't have grazed his ear. It would have hit him right here. That would have been the end. And if you think the country is a scary and worrisome place right now, just imagine if he had not made it. I don't enjoy having to have this conversation, but it's much better than the one we could have been having today. So please keep Baron Trump in mind. And I want to shout out, let's see, there she is. Olympic grade lurker says, I don't like Trump, but this is some world BS. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And it isn't about, the thing is that this isn't about, Trump's virtues or pitfall failures as a person or politically or anything else. It has nothing to do with it. You don't do this. You don't do this to make a political point. And again, gang, they'll try again. And the reason why I think this went over, and it's just, for any, I'm sure the FBI and other various alphabet soup agencies, they're monitoring this stream and every stream and all of social media. So I just want to, shout out to them little schnookums and say, literally no one is going to believe this is a lone wolf shooter. Nobody. And considering the very, very strange security breaches, no one is going to believe that the institutions do not at least have some fault, that they're not at least partially to blame. It's just a question of just what exactly are they guilty of. So we're clear on that. And for the media, did you see that video of one of the rally attenders after it happened and people were getting cleared out? He turned to the stands where the media had their cameras and everything else, pointed his finger at them, and he said, "This is your fault." Things in this country could not have gotten so toxic. People could not have turned on one another the way that they have if the media had done its fucking job. If you are in the media, the news business, your job is to report facts, answer what, where, what, when, why, who, how. That's your job. Not to opine, not to shade the news in a political direction that you are personally biased for. That's not your job. But you failed. They failed because they're a bunch of activists who do not care about anything except for themselves and their own little goals. So yes, they are to blame. As are all of the other politicians who've talked about the need for Trump to be removed, using language that if it was ever applied to them, they would have described as very much, calls to violence, and how desperately they're trying to pretend like they're not responsible for calls to violence themselves. Mm-mm-mm-mm-mm. They're afraid. The media, the alphabet soup of agencies, the political establishment, uniparty, because GOP, those people that every time something sensible is almost accomplished, they buckle just at the last minute. They fail just at they don't have quite enough votes. Those people, those useless, spineless, pathetic people who are nothing more than the punching bag for the Democratic Party. Oh yeah. They're responsible too. There's a lot of blame to go around. And I know people are saying, oh, turn down the temperature, this and that. I'm like, well, I'm really not interested in becoming less vigilant against people who are a threat to me and mine. Because it isn't Democrat versus Republican. It isn't Christians versus, everyone else. It isn't any of that. It is just Americans versus anti-Americans. That's all that it is anymore. And yesterday made that very clear and very, very simple. That is perhaps the only good thing to come out of this entire debacle. Situation is very simple now. Oh, and if anyone ever bitches and moans about January 6th and how scary that was, I don't fucking care. I barely cared on the day. I definitely don't give a shit now. I don't know how things are going to end up, but I do know that it is necessary for us to have a top to bottom, back to front, left to right clean out of all government agencies, every branch of government, every level of government, federal, state, local. We need to make sure that the people who are anti-American, anti-Constitution, are shown themselves out of power. People need to be prosecuted. And we need to start having a very serious conversation about bringing back the old world custom of exile. Countries cannot survive if they have traitors actively trying to tear it down. Because we do not live in a world in which the political arguments are essentially about how can freedom best be secured and achieved? How can rights best be upheld? What's really required? That is not the argument, and it has not been the argument for decades. It's only since the age of the internet that we realize just how much that has not been the argument. This is about people who would actually like to see the promise of America fulfilled versus the people who want to get it out of the way so they can have power. And another thing that I think we as pagans should be particularly aware of: when the Roman Republic ceased to function, that was when we got Caesar. The left is laying the groundwork for a Caesar moment. If we end up in that situation, they are the creators of it. Now, before I go, I want to hear what you all have to say. Arizona Raven, here's done truth. Friend's best friend was reporter outside J6. Recent release, disappeared. Finally got home. They made a normal guy into a drug addict. Oh my God. My God. The crimes done against those people. People who just happened to be there. I mean, it would be one thing if you were charging people who had broken windows or, who were, obviously doing something that they should have known better not to do. But everyone else, people who were just there, people who just wandered around, people who were just there to support the president, the way they've been treated, and the cowardice of people who refuse to defend them. Cowardice has consequences. I don't know how to make it any more plain to anybody. There's a reason why I have been nagging almost since the inception of this channel about how cowardice needs to be cast aside. I don't care if it's cowardice over your politics, or cowardice over your religious convictions, or cowardice about finally standing up to someone who has been encroaching upon your boundaries and then making sure those boundaries are enforced. I do not care what the nature of the cowardice is. We cannot afford it. And as adults around here, we should be setting a better example for the younger generations. They are looking to what we are doing right now. They want to know who is willing to actually stand up for them and their future. They want to know if there's something worth fighting for. Now, thankfully, there is. And I've gamed out a lot of scenarios in which things go very, very south. I understand. I have thought about these things. I understand that we may find ourselves in a situation in which our options become very, very limited. I get it. But that is not our situation today. So while you have the capability, while you are able to, stand up, speak out. Evil has to be opposed. How do you think all the corruption has happened? How do you think that all of these horrible people in politics have been getting away with things for so long? It's because no one was standing up and saying no. No one was setting boundaries. No one was putting pressure on enforcement agencies. No one was punishing the politicians who failed to get this done. So do not put your trust in the same weak, pathetic people who have proven how useless and honestly how traitorous they are. If we are going to avert the disaster that is before us, it will be up to us. It will be up to the citizens with a loud cry saying, I don't think so. This requires us living our values, telling friend from foe. And I know I am angry today, and I am sorry. And all I can say is that this is the restrained version of that. We have to move forward. We have to aid the efforts of making sure that the people who are accountable are held accountable. And one thing that is within everyone's power is that you do not support the people who are celebrating this moment or who have actively created the circumstances that made such an event more likely. You do not give them your attention. You do not give them your time. You do not give them your money. Starve them. None of us have the ability to cut these institutions down to size on our own, but we can bleed them dry. Arizona Raven, I'm sure husband unit will be very thankful for your good wishes to stay out of my way today. Well, you know what? On that subject, and people who know us in person, they also have this misapprehension. They think that I am the steely-hearted radical. So when I say that of husband unit and myself that I am the sweet one, I want you to understand my full meaning today. Husband unit's going to be just fine. Olympic grade lurker. Just ask the cards for the energy on the situation. I pulled reverse 7 of Wands. I do feel exhausted from everything's going on. I just want to go back to boring government. I understand. We're not going to see that in our lifetimes. Unfortunately, we are in a stage of vigilance and action. I would like to be able to say something comforting, but I would be lying to you. And if I'm lying to you, I'm of no bloody use to you or anybody else. We're going to have to strengthen each other and re-energize each other. See, Violence is Life says Vivek Ramaswamy had a good take. Yeah, I saw his comments on Twitter. And that actually brings up another thought that I've been having. My position on Trump's VP has essentially been, it's not so much who it is. Is that person going to be someone that the powers that be would not want to replace Trump? We need insurance against future assassination attempts and insurance against future impeachment attempts. Vivek Ramaswamy would be a very good insurance policy against that. Because again, Trump ultimately, at the end of the day, you look at his opinions, his policies, what his actions in the past. He is a moderate. Vivek Ramaswamy is a more refined version of Javier Milei of, I believe it's Argentina. Afuera man. The one who's going to take the chainsaw to the bureaucratic state, and, well, I'm proud to say, has. That's the kind of spirit we need in the VP. But as far as Vivek Ramaswamy or any other prominent pro-American voices, whatever positions they're in going forward, I want them to be in positions to do the maximum damage to the opposition. That's the important thing. See, hello to Missy Brooks. I'm glad you do appreciate the honesty. I'm afraid we have a rather unbridled version of it today, but I appreciate that support. Seeing Arizona Raven agrees with Olympic. She is exhausted. Yeah, me too. And I'm a Leo, Scorpio, Capricorn trifecta. So if I'm tired, I know that everyone else who has more balanced signs is probably feeling worse. Ooh. Speaking of zodiac, according to Violence's Life, Vivek is a Capricorn. I was not aware of that. I like that very much. That's a very promising sign. And much love to Arizona Raven. Thank you for that. Now, before I came online, I did pull some cards about the situation because I asked essentially what we need to do. Because again, we'll feel our feelings in their full force later. Right now, we need to think about what needs to be done. I used the good old-fashioned Rider-Waite tarot deck. I pulled the Knight of Wands, the Four of Wands, and the King of Pentacles. So let's talk about this combo right here, because my question was specifically, what do we need to do? Well, we have the Knight of Wands. The Knight of Wands, in addition to being messenger, has the warrior spirit, not necessarily going off into battle right that second, but he is still having the warrior spirit. He has the catalyst. He's ready to sally forth and do what needs to be done. Observe also that he is going past the pyramids. Now, why is that significant? Well, we find out every single day that the pyramids are far more interesting, even spiritually, than what perhaps early archaeology ever gave them credit for. And Egypt is, of course, one of the centers of surviving pagan knowledge, and of course for many of our magical traditions that we practice in one modified form or another today. So, what needs to be done? This is the spirit that we need to take in. Not only our ability to push back, which certainly the Knight of Wands, but also be able to draw upon the ancient wisdom to do so. Now for the Four of Wands. In the context of this reading, alliances. All of us need to make alliances right now, and this is not the time to be particularly picky about who they are. Anyone who is welcome to stand on the side of America, the Constitution, and who's saying trying to assassinate Trump is just not okay, these are our allies. We need to treat them accordingly. Finally, the King of Pentacles. You see him looking at that scroll. He knows what he needs to be doing. He's contemplating the method by which it is to be done, and he is wholly focused upon his mission. Fighting spirit, making alliances, focus on mission. That does not, of course, indicate to us what our outcome will be. But that's not what I asked. I asked, what do we need to do? If we do what we need to do, that will eventually take care of itself. I've been seeing a lot of Christians today who said that Trump is alive by the grace of God. They believe angels were protecting him and all sorts. Ivanka Trump believed that her departed mother, that her spirit was watching over him. I think certainly divine intervention was involved. Nothing to do with the Christian God, of course. But the Norns, the Fates, call them what you will, they have not finished writing Trump's chapter, or ours. He is alive for a reason. This was not his time. And I'm taking it. I am choosing to take it as a sign that this isn't the country's time either. We are facing peril, we are danger, subversion. There are traitors who will have to be dealt with. But we're not done. Instead of this being the fall of the Republic, the way so many of the doomsayers who have, which I am telling you right now, the only thing I have to say to the doomsayers is just be glad I am not close enough to give you a hard slap across the face, because that's what you need for that kind of talk. For the doomsayers, pull yourself together and focus on doing something productive. No more wallowing in your feelings or analyzing all the ways in which things could go wrong. Focus on what can do right, encourage people to do right, and be productive. Otherwise, whack, slap right across the face. Not interested in men who are too weak to face the challenges of our age. And as I've said to our pagan brothers who've gotten on my nerves from time to time, I said, if it ends up falling to the women to push the men into actually defending our civilization, or if we're the ones who are having to lead the charge, you are never going to have another moment's peace for the rest of your life, because we will never let you forget it. And we will never, ever forgive you for it. So, are you more afraid of what the opposition can do to you, or are you afraid of losing the respect of the women? And the women saying, when you're ready to act like men, we will treat you like men. But if you're just boys, expect to be treated like boys. So, pick your poison, chickadees. I'm going to be 43 in a couple weeks. Menopause is right around the corner. I'm of a cranky disposition anyway. So this is not the era of history to be testing this woman's patience. So, food for thought, gentlemen. There's hope, gang. However fragile, however hard we have to work for it, there's hope. One way or another, we will survive. We will survive by continuing to disseminate our ideas, practicing them to the absolute best of our ability, teaching the next generation, and pointing out the good outcomes we have from actually applying the wisdom that we have inherited. That is how we will win, even if it takes us another 1,000 years. But you know what? I'm a priestess in the service of the gods. I don't have anything else better to do. When Loki came into my life a couple of years ago, I don't think that was without reason. I don't think that he has been teaching me to get comfortable with having to wield chaos rather than trying to escape chaos without reason. I think, if anything, he came to me to make sure that my spirit was strong enough to face what we must face. The gods are active. It's not just Loki, although people are hearing him, and they are understanding that he is far more complex of a figure than what they were otherwise led to believe. I feel the presence of Thor. I feel Tyr. I feel Lu. I feel Odin. I really feel a very itchy Morrigan. The gods are here, and they are present with us. They are working, and if we work in harmony with them, we can achieve great things. And even if one chapter of this nation ends, another will begin. And the decisions about who ultimately writes what that chapter reads like are us. So let's be the people who make decisions, rather than responding and having things happen to us. Let's do things. Proactive, making choices, showing strength. We do it, others will follow suit. Not because they suddenly discovered the gods, but because they see that's the only thing a person can do, whether they're Christian, atheist, Hindu, Buddhist, whatever. The pagan revival hasn't just saved us as individuals. It can ultimately save the country. We just have to do our part. And that's my challenge to you. Do your part, whatever that looks like. We all occupy different spaces and different functions within the larger pagan ecosystem. Whatever your function is within that ecosystem, fulfill it. That's your part. That's what you were called upon to do. That's what your skills and your talents enable you to do. And that's all that's required of you. So just do that. Now, I've been ranting and raving for nearly an hour. That's a lot for a Sunday. We all have a lot to reflect upon and a lot to do. So I will leave you to it. And I have been working on a couple of other projects that I think might actually be brought to light a bit sooner than what I intended. So be on the lookout for that as well. I have a few things I want to get arranged, but now more than ever, we need oases where we can encourage and comfort each other, where we can consult one another, compare notes, and to where we can help each other survive. So I'm working on something. Keep your ears open. But have as good of a rest of the Sunday as you possibly can. Please consider what I've had to say. And again, remember, this is the time to step forward as pro-American allies and to show the world what we're really made of and what we actually care about. Don't underestimate the importance of your personal role in this. I believe in you. The gods believe in you. And that's a good enough reason for me. So, see you guys later. Bye.